The story of the King's Bounty game series is truly unique. That's because there was no official series at all till 2007. There was just a game made in 1990 by New World Computing, the company known by every gamer in post-Soviet countries and also by many gamers worldwide. Just one game, the first and only, but not in the Soviet Union. In 1995, New World Computing merged their unusual tactical RPG with their famous Might and Magic universe and released one of the most important games of the 20th century, Heroes of Might and Magic. It's hard to overestimate the popularity of Heroes of Might and Magic, but probably nowhere in the world are heroes so loved as they are loved in Russia. Although, when I asked English-speaking Twitter about Heroes of Might and Magic, I found out that it was also highly appreciated in the USA, Germany and Romania. But for Russia, Heroes is not just a game, it's a huge part of a gaming culture. I can even say it's a cult. And even now, in 2021, this game continues to get new faithful fans. So was King's Bounty in the 90s in Russia and Ukraine. Today, King's Bounty brand belongs to the Russian company, as Heroes of Might and Magic are, and it's either a very uncommon coincidence or a miracle. Two most popular Western game series in Russia were bought by Russian developers who made sequels no worse than the Western originals. What are the odds? Hello YouTube, my name is Victor and you are watching the Russian Video Game Comrade Show. Today I want to tell you about King's Bounty game's history and the new King's Bounty 2 game that is almost out. Most YouTube videos in Russian or English on King's Bounty series begin with King's Bounty The Legend. Some of the authors ignore the original game as there was no such game at all, or mention it saying it doesn't worth your time today. I doubt it's fair and suppose that they miss the most interesting part of the story. Especially the Russian authors who have to know there was a really interesting King's Bounty story in our country before 1C bought the rights to King's Bounty brand and released The Legend. Did you know there were at least 2 more original games in the series and a couple little known ports of the game for various computers? And all of them were made by the former CIS citizens. Sure, they were all bootleg, released exclusively in Russia, but in my point of view, to understand the importance of King's Bounty series for Russian gamers, I have to tell you about all of them. After all, King's Bounty brand wasn't chosen for purchase by 1C accidentally. If you're not familiar with the original game at all, the ancestor of Heroes was something similar to the famous tactical strategy, but without the necessity of managing and capturing castles. And also, this game had only one acting character. In a nutshell, you had to control the knight who was sent by the king to fight the dark forces. You had to travel the map, recruit your army from the special buildings where the warriors had respawned every week, fight the enemies in turn-based mode, and the main goal was to find several pieces of the map hidden on 4 different continents to reveal the location of the final 5th continent where the evil forces had settled down. The game was released for a lot of different platforms, containing IBM PC, Commodore 64, Apple II, Macintosh, Amiga and even the Sega Genesis. This version aged the best, so if you wanna try the original game, Sega is the best option. The main problem with the original game in terms of its difficulty today is the time limit. If you don't know what to do or where to go, chances are you'll be dead long before you get to the goal, as every hero's step decreases the timer. On the other hand, this is typical for most games of that time, because already being well acquainted with such a game, you can complete it in less than an hour. So you just have to learn the basics of the game and then just act fast. So, why today's video's name is The Russian Game That Wasn't. The original game had a great success around the proud owners of PCs in the Soviet Union, and a lot of them wished for more, but there was none. So the Soviet programmer from Kharkov, Ukraine, Sergei Prokofiev decided to step in and make his own King's Bounty game. As most of the games in the USSR, early Russia and Ukraine were bootleg, nobody had a clue that King's Bounty 2, released for MS-DOS in 1993, wasn't authentic. It was a decent game and everyone just considered it legal. Bootleg King's Bounty 2 gameplay was very similar to the first one. The player's objective was to collect pieces of the map. In the second part there were 5 of them, and then reveal the last location to fight the main villain. This game had new monsters, magic and additional stuff like cutting through forests and rocks on the map. In addition, bootleg King's Bounty 2 slightly differed visually. There was only one serious problem with this game. Initially, Sergei conceived a dilogy. It had to be King's Bounty 2 1 first, and King's Bounty 2 later. But the second half of the game was never released. So when you collected all the pieces of the map in King's Bounty 2 and got ready to set sail for the final battle, your only prize was the line that read "End of the Chapter 1". There also were several difficulty levels in this game, likewise the original, and if you selected easy, normal or hard, you could get more time to finish the game. But what a joke, you couldn't finish it unless you played on the super hard difficulty. And by finishing, I mean seeing the end of the Chapter 1 live. Remember how you couldn't finish some old games on easy when game just told you "thank you for playing, please try harder difficulty"? This is quite the same. But the King's Bounty of the 20th century story in ex-USSR didn't come to an end there either. King's Bounty 2 for PC in 1993 was a real gift for the gamers. But the truth is, almost no one in Russia owned a PC at that time, as they were too expensive. On the other hand, a lot of people had a ZX Spectrum clone, both gamers and developers. And in the same 1993, bedroom coders came to the rescue and ported the original King's Bounty game for the famous Cirque Live's computer. 3 years later, in 1996, there also was a release of Sergei Prokofiev's King's Bounty 2 for the Speccy, and some people even say that this version was even better than the original one. There is even a port of the original game for the Soviet Vector 06C computer. I'm not sure if it was made in the 90s or later, but I will cover both the game and the computer in a standalone Soviet Tech Tales episode sometime later. Just imagine how popular King's Bounty in Russia was. Believe it or not, there even was King's Bounty 3 in Russia. Bootleg 2, of course, also released for ZX Spectrum in 2001. In 2001, the game for ZX. It was created by Oleg Parfenov, coder from Kirov. Unfortunately, I didn't play this one, but it looks quite nice, and those involved say that there are a lot of cool innovations here, of course given the limitations of the platform. Same time, in 2001, there was a Western release of the very first King's Bounty's game, Remake. It was released for PlayStation 2, and if you're not familiar with King's Bounty, you probably won't guess it's a remake of an old game. It's called Heroes of Might and Magic: Quest for the Dragonbone Staff, and in fact, it's indeed nicely wrapped and slightly modified original King's Bounty. Same 3 heroes to choose from, a warrior, a paladin and a mage, same turn-based battles and the same goal: rid the world of evil in the name of the king. One more interesting fact. Sergei Prokofiev, the author of the bootleg King's Bounty 2, eventually founded a video game developer studio, Alpha Class, and released a dilogy named Heroes of Malgrimia in 2005 and 2007 respectively. These games look and play very similar to the King's Bounty and Heroes of Might and Magic series, but in my opinion are not as interesting as their prefiguration. And only 18 years later, in 2008, there was another official release of the new King's Bounty game, King's Bounty: The Legend. This game development began even before 1C obtained legal rights for the King's Bounty franchise. It had a working title Battlelord, and odds were it had to be released under this name. But luckily, the deal between 1C and 3DO Company worked out, and Battlelord became King's Bounty: The Legend. This game was really good, and even caused interest in the Western market. Atari released it in the USA, and I wanna tell you that not a lot of Russian games were released outside Russia, especially by such huge publishers. I myself played King's Bounty: The Legend for countless hours, and still like to run it sometimes. Such great games do not come on a daily basis, especially from Russian game developers. And this one is really a big deal. It sold quite well and even got 4 standalone expansions in the next couple years. King's Bounty 2 will be released tomorrow on 21st of August 2021. I had an opportunity to play it a little earlier and want to share my impressions with you. King's Bounty 2 will be released for all the current platforms, but I myself chose the PC version. I usually prefer to play my games on a console, but King's Bounty series is bounded with the PC in my opinion, as well as Diablo 2 Resurrected, which I'm also looking forward to. To tell the truth, it's just my little thing, because the change to a third-person view made the game more than comfortable to play on a gamepad. And I even connected the Xbox controller to the computer several times in the process of capturing the footage. I made this because I couldn't get smooth and beautiful movement through the environments with the mouse. But if we're speaking King's Bounty's turn-based combats, it's still more comfortable to control this with a mouse for me. The most important thing to remember when you are about to sit down to play King's Bounty 2, it's not a AAA multi-million-dollar project. Of course, there are some troubles in the game's graphics, like pieces of the knight's armor falling into each other, or game's mechanics, like the mysterious disappearance of your horse each time you start a dialogue with an NPC. But I also have to mention that your horse comes back immediately with your first whistle. But firstly, I'm sure all of this will be eventually fixed with game's patches, and secondly, a small by the standards of large Western Studios development team has made a truly great work. They've created an interesting and in all gameplay aspects high-quality game. And it's not usual for the Russian-developed games. Remember the ones I showed you in the Worst Games Made in Russia episode? Visually, I could compare King's Bounty 2 with the French A Plague Tale Innocence game. Everything looks very nice here, sometimes I can even say wonderful. But at the same time, small flaws can come out if you look at the game a bit closer. But overall, the game is really good. At first it may seem that King's Bounty 2 has stepped away from the King's Bounty The Legend formula towards the classic RPGs, and the only thing left from all the previous games is turn-based battle system. But if you'll have a closer look, you'll realize that it's not true, and King's Bounty 2 is the same old King's Bounty, and the only thing that changed is the third-person view. I started the game with a magician, but all the other characters are also here. The plot of the game is the same for all of them, and any character will start the game getting out of the prison with the same old goal: rid the world of the upcoming darkness. On the way to your goal, it will also be necessary to pursue side quests. Some will help you to move forward on the main quest, some were made just to help you earn some money or respect from one of the 4 factions, making your life in Enter much easier. Sounds like an ordinary RPG, isn't it? Travel, upgrade, complete simple side tasks while the world is on fire, and at last have an epic fight with the main boss. But the truth is, if you'll take a look at the big picture, imagining the game map in the old school isometric projection, you'll realize that all the battles here are scripted beforehand and placed strictly in the necessary places. You'll also see that the developer wanted you to fight all of them in almost strict order, and predicted you'll complete almost all the side quests in the meantime, as it's necessary to gain more leadership points for recruiting a bigger army to face your enemies. In just several hours in the game, it becomes clear that the gameplay in King's Bounty 2 is almost exactly the same as in King's Bounty The Legend. You slowly explore the map, discover obelisks and other stuff along the way, you complete side quests and slowly gain strengths to move on to the next location. You wanna say that sounds boring? If you think so, you've probably never tried to play either any King's Bounty game or Heroes of Might and Magic one, or tried and didn't like it. King's Bounty 2 is a tactical RPG, and not only because it has a turn-based tactical battle. As for me personally, the pleasure of walking through such games has always been the process of building a logical chain of all the problems in your head, lining them up and solving them all one after another. And this is such type of game. King's Bounty 2 was clearly developed with a huge replayability value in mind. As I've already mentioned, there are several different factions in the game, and joining different ones will result in different outcomes. For instance, we have a local bad guy who ordered our murder. To ask him some questions, we have to get in his castle, but it's not easy as the guy is very suspicious and doesn't let strangers in. We can ask help either from the royal guards or the secret cult, and the outcome will be the same. Eventually we will get into the castle. But not only the way in will be different, but the influence on the new upcoming side quests too. Cooperating with one of the opposing factions will result in getting their new side quest and abandoning the other ones. And to see all the available content in the game, you'll have to finish it several times. Depending on the player's class and gameplay style, you can solve some in-game tasks in several ways. For example, here we have a magician who doesn't really want to talk to us. But we need the information he has, so we have to break his magical barrier and make him talk. As I play the mage, I can not only break the seal with brute force, this way we have to fight the magical barrier guards, and they are really tough guys. But also with the mini-game, where I have to find the right order of activated magical runes to disable the barrier. Sometimes it's wiser to think a little than to immediately rush into action. But no matter what, you'll have to enter a battle in King's Bounty 2 sooner or later, so let's talk a little about the battle system in the game. It will be familiar to anyone who ever played the original King's Bounty, The Legend, or any instance of the Heroes of Might and Magic. The battleground here is divided into hexes. Your army will move on turn-based basis. Different units can cover different distances depending on their move points and inflict different types and amounts of damage, depending on their class and quantity of the units in the pack. The more leadership points your hero has, the more units he or she can recruit. Leadership points are gained by leveling the hero up or equipping different gear. This is similar to any other RPG, so I don't really think I have to explain it. Your second option of damaging enemies is magic. You can cast either from scrolls or your magic book, if you mastered the spell before. The scrolls can be used only once, the mastered spells can be casted unlimited amount of times while you still have mana. All the troops are also divided into 4 different factions, and you have to combine them carefully, as for example both holy and undead units will harm each other's morality in one army. A lot of units have not only an ordinary attack skill, but also a special one, as well as some useful buffs. For instance, some of the units can increase the distance of their move on the battlefield or double the amount of damage dealt. Others can, for example, heal their allies. Combining all of this, you need to win the battle and try not to lose your units meanwhile. To help you to understand all the battle mechanics, there are also special side missions in the game where you will recreate the battles of the Elders using different sets of units you'll be given for these battles only. But despite this quest's mission is to help you understand all the game mechanics well, they are really tough, as you can't alter the army you get here and have to do a very precise set of actions to win in every such battle. I understand why they made such side quests, but in my opinion they hadn't to be such tough. Every unit who will survive a battle will gain experience over time and will eventually become stronger. And those who will be dead in action even will have a chance to be resurrected after the battle, but only if at least one of the units in the pack will be still alive when battle ends. Resurrection costs less gold than the cost of all new units, so try to be careful with your troops if you want to save some money. It's really amazing that almost every battlefield in King's Bounty 2 is unique. They all are different in size, in terrain height, terrain barriers, and so on. And as different units have different movement and attack range, and for example the fact archers can't shoot through the terrain barriers, almost every battle experience in the game is slightly different. I really wish the game had some options in the characters' interactions with NPCs. All the lines in any conversation here are straight. You press the button to talk to somebody and then just listen. I'm not sure if I can say it's a game flaw, but when you're playing an RPG, you're expecting to get involved in it. And it's a hard thing to do if you even have no options in deciding what your character is going to say. The way of interaction with NPCs was a huge part of the previous King's Bounty: The Legend, and it's really strange they decided not to include this in the part 2. And one more little thing. I really wished your hero had a dash in this game. Sometimes you have to cover quite a long distance without fast travel, and it's a bummer you have to do it so slowly. Your horse helps a little with that, but I also wished it could gallop. This would save a lot of precious time, especially in towns, when even the horse moves so slowly, you'll think it's a joke. I really wish they fixed this. But overall, in my opinion, King's Bounty 2 is a really great game. The game all the King's Bounty fans waited for quite a long time. And if you like King's Bounty: The Legend, you'll most likely like this one. Yes, it has some flaws, but overall it's a decent AA product, totally worth your time and money. And the developers make me proud I can say this, because there are really not a lot of Russian games I can be proud of. Thank you guys. Thank you for watching this episode. I really hope you liked it. Please press thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice day. Good luck!